Oh, Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose. Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell rock. Grandma got run over by a reindeer coming home from our house Christmas Eve. One man saying that is fine. If that's your opinion and you're not in it, that's fine. But there is an entire market of millions and millions of people that agree that it is a store of value. So, you can think one thing, but there's also a market, and markets tend to become efficient over time.
We do know that you will always get paid in Hex on a daily basis. And that is truly the miracle that we call Hex, because it is trustless interest, trustless yield. Nothing will stop that contract from running.
On the rooftop, click, click, click. Welcome in, everybody, to the Creed of Crypto. My name is Bowles of Holly Boy Crypto. I have here with me, as always, Crypto Ewok. Welcome to everybody in the chat. We have a very active chat already tonight. Shout out to Briz. We got the Rat, Scrubhead, Tam Tam. Welcome into you. We got Effin' Based. We got Hexagon Lost in Asia. We have Pulse Jitsu, which of course is Fast Abdul, I believe. Welcome into everybody in the chat. We appreciate you being here. Wall to Wall TV checking in. All right, let's get bearish. Let's get down to the nitty gritty here. We got a lot to talk about today. Will PulseChain season be coming soon? Well, I mean, there's probably videos of us thinking that, saying that 2 years ago, and here we are still doing it now. But there's some things happening, obviously, within the community. We have huge stuff happening with Liberty Swap this week. We've obviously got the ProveX sacrifice ongoing, although not really that advantageous as much to sacrifice now. Obviously, there's many people out there that would say, no, never. I would never sacrifice for that, you idiot. But yeah, we have lots to get to. We'll update you on that. Christmas time is in the air. We got some positive vibes or some horribly negative vibes, depending upon your life circumstance. But things are moving. That's one thing we do know. Are we in a bull market? Are we in a bear market? Obviously, the mainstream crypto influencer accounts are arguing over that. We had, obviously, the FOMC take place today. And as expected, they did cut 25 rate basis points as expected, and some interesting words actually after the fact from Jerome Powell. So we'll talk about all that. But yeah, a lot going on, to say the least, right now. So Ewok, how are you doing on this December Wednesday evening?
I'm fantastic, man. I'm seeing a lot of things, and honestly, it's looking more and more bullish, I think, every day. Whether it be some price pump, some of the posts I'm seeing, a lot of the improvements that are happening. I think maybe we finally figured out what our mantra is this bull season. I think we'll get into that, and I'm excited.
I am too. Yeah, a lot going on no matter what. And, the dust has kind of settled here. It's been about a month or so since we had the first kind of shoe drop where Bitcoin closed below the 50-week moving average, when all of a sudden, every major Bitcoin person on Twitter has basically been saying, okay, we're in a bear market now. Move to 55K is coming, going to be going to 35K. Another calendar years when we'll hit the low, and just par for the course. One thing I think a lot of those guys are ignoring, which obviously we're going to get to, is other than these moves by Bitcoin, which haven't been, totally predictable, even though I think they're acting like they are. We've seen Ethereum actually start to gain strength against Bitcoin after a 35 to 40% drop. We're seeing altcoins maintain obviously they were butchered, but they're maintaining the levels that they've been at. these are not things that happen in traditional bear markets of the past. So it's very interesting. We don't, who knows what this is? Obviously, there's massive debate about the 4-year cycle and everything. But at the very least, we have been seeing Ethereum hold up against Bitcoin. So let's just get right into that. And more people pouring in. We appreciate all you guys in the chat. Right now, we have Bitcoin just over 92K. Obviously, as usual, some volatility on FOMC day. Powell's comments were honestly pretty bullish. I mean, I'm not going to say they were dovish in the fact that like he's never going to come out and be like, yeah, we're going to cut at the next 3 meetings and all this, especially when the guy's gone in 6 months at this point now, not even 5-6 months. We've got Bitcoin at 92K. Saw some bullish action today. Ethereum has been in the green as Bitcoin has been in the red. Ethereum is at 3330 right now. We are seeing that Ethereum to BTC ratio tick up. It's still in a, it's not in a good zone, but we are at, I think, 0.036 right now. Keep in mind, when the Ethereum ETF launched, we were at 0.055. And in past bull markets, we see Ethereum much, much higher than that. So it kind of stands to reason that Ethereum really doing nothing this entire cycle so far is showing some strength here as Bitcoin does dip and kind of just hang out at these levels. First off, we'll just kind of talk about price and time here, Ewok, and then we can get into the actual, macro FOMC stuff. But yeah, what do you think about what we're seeing with both BTC and ETH? Is there a cycle to speak of at this point? Well, what are we looking at timing wise? Yeah, what do you think about all this?
Yeah, I mean, I still think there's a cycle. I don't want to downplay that. It just seems to be a lot more extended, and people that have been calling for the extended cycle, I don't want to call it a super cycle. I think it's just more extended. It's more on the macro. It's more with, there's a lot of things that are all playing into this, and everything has been delayed. We've talked about it a couple times. It's the politicians playing games with the rates and the Fed and overall macro sentiment. When we look at this trend line, it's really hugging this this trend line, that we've had on this chart forever now. And it just keeps rising with it. Now, this isn't a very steep trend line. So, you're looking out to February, even until if it were to keep at this rate, it would be February before it even hit 100,000 again. So I don't think that's the case, but it is holding it at least. So I think that's good. Over to Ethereum, while it's making a nice steady climb, it's climbing at a much faster rate, and that is where this ratio is looking very strong. We still need to get above the 0.04 to get to a previous high, I guess, of this last, this little run up here back in August. So, to gain some strength there would be super, super bullish for it too. So, but yeah, it's holding good. It's still picking up some steam, I think. It doesn't mean Bitcoin's not going to, we all know these prices can go thousands of dollars within hours. So all it takes is a little bullish news. We know there's manipulation happening. We know there's, corporate entities out there that are suppressing this. So yeah, I mean, I'm not worried. Everything is looking like it's on the right trajectory. And the littlest bit of news, I think, can change that, or not change it, but can make it take off.
Yeah, the terminology is the weird thing. Like you were talking about, well, I'm not going to say super cycle. Again, we've talked about this a lot of times where with extended cycle, super cycle, 4-year, even 4-year cycle, which Briz, I want to acknowledge his comment here. Most people are not actually like identifying what they even mean by that. And it's weird because they usually throw around the terms like with a lot of confidence, but they don't. It's the same as like when people make price calls, right? I mean, they don't usually give a time frame. So it's like, okay, I can be right anytime, you know what I mean? Or never. But for example, like Britt says, if Bitcoin pumps in January and February, I would still call that the 4-year cycle. So for example, looking at Bob Lucas, which, he's like the 4-year cycle maxi guy, basically, his Charter's official Webster's dictionary of investors definition on a 4-year cycle is that Bitcoin would hit the low every 4 years. And then there's also the question, well, what's every 4 years? Is that within the same quarter every 4 years? But it's the cycle low. So technically, what Briz is saying easily could line up. I mean, you could even see Bitcoin top in June, and Bob has said this himself. You could see it top in like June of 2026 if it's still bottomed. And again, I guarantee this definition by Bob Lucas is malleable. That's the thing with all of this stuff. But if you then saw a cycle low in Q4, I'm guessing even into Q1 26, 27, he would still say that's the 4-year cycle. You know what I mean? So whereas I bet some people with what I just described would call that an extended or super cycle. So everybody's, playing with a different deck of cards, basically, when it comes to definitions. That's the thing. Either way, I think the thing that we've been trying to preach the last few weeks is, I don't know what the hell's going on anymore. I think more people should say that. But also, are you selling right now? No. I mean, obviously, yes, some people are, stupidly in our opinion, but buy high, sell low. That's it. And, unless you're abandoning ship for something else and you don't believe in what you hold anymore, we obviously do. I feel even more confident after this ProveX sacrifice, after the video that Richard Hart put out last week or whatever that was now. And yeah, it's just a matter of buying high and selling low. And I don't know about the cycles.
I'd rather buy low and sell high.
Yes.
But
yeah.
Either way.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you, I guess, like shifting it over to the macro thing now, with the FOMC news today, again, everybody expected the 25-point cut. Again, really the bigger thing was Powell's comments were pretty dovish. Not so much that he was saying that there's definitely going to be more rate cuts. I mean, he's always going to do the responsible dad type thing and say, we're going on a meeting by meeting basis. Inflation's still a little bit higher than we'd like, blah, blah, blah. But he essentially said that they're going to be printing money, and I sent you that post by one of those just regular update sites, but about them buying $40 billion worth of treasury bills over the next 30 days, like into December here. So we know already, and this is the thing with the money printing, it's not as out in the open as the Trump stimmy check. You know what I mean? Where Trump talks about that. Their injection is, on the back end into banks, which we've already seen. I mean, I don't know how many billions it's been at this point. I think we're already over 40 billion, probably over the last couple of months anyway, that we've seen injected by the Fed kind of stealthily. This is another attempt at covering up money printing, which they're not going to say. Like, of course, they're not going to say that. So you gloss it over with, they call it quantitative easing in the past or whatever else. And now they're talking about buying these treasury bills and things like that. There's always some other way of framing it, which at the end of the day is the can is being kicked down the road. And the one thing that we can all take stock in, and the reason we're in crypto, is that the United States dollar is going to continue to be decimated in value. So what do you make? I know you didn't directly watch Powell, but just kind of getting the sense of the comments and stuff. I mean, what do you make of, the Fed continuing to do what they're always going to do and him basically saying it?
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. This is a massive add to banking liquidity. You're right. It's not a stimulus check where it goes in the hands of everybody. This provides liquidity to the macro, overall. So things become more liquid. It's easier to get loans. The rates are going down. It's easier for the rich people to play the games. At the same time, you're right. They keep kicking the can down the road. They're never going to decrease the overall debt that we have. So they're just playing games with it right now. I don't know. We haven't seen a statistic on how much interest we're actually paying on what we do owe daily, and I'm sure that number just keeps increasing. But yeah, I mean, it is a way for them to inject liquidity without giving the people what, the stimulus checks would set crypto on fire. Like, it would really light a match and set it running. This is to position, again, the wealthy to make the plays before they give it to the people. So, they're always one step ahead. They don't want the normal class to have any kind of advantage. This only plays to the upper class and the wealthy when they do things like this. So, um, it's still bullish. It still creates an environment though where the risk on assets like Bitcoin and the crypto altcoins, things like that, become more intriguing. It's easier again to borrow money. People make plays. They're making more on the side with the loans that they place with prices going up. It just allows them to position themselves for the other markets that are about to, catch up to everything else. So that's, yeah.
Well, this leads me again, and I don't mean to totally rehash the cycle talk, but when you see something like this lining up exactly the way it is, the other thing, like all of this is going into 2026. This is not like it's all happening right now. It's going to happen throughout 2026. We're going to see further rate cuts for sure. We know that Powell is gone in 5 or 6 months here in May of 26. It sounds like Kevin Hassett might be tabbed to be the next Fed chair, and it's going to be a Trump mouthpiece, basically. I mean, he's just going to probably continue to cut rates and do whatever they need to do to print more money and things like that. And usually you're going to see risk on assets go up by that. So I guess, again, I ask, and the reason I keep harping on this is because so many of these mainstream crypto Bitcoin influencers out there, the Ben Cohens, Bob Lucas, a lot of the mainstream ones are calling for, again, the same thing as always when it comes to Bitcoin. But when it's just a matter of, oh, this is what it's always done before, looking at the chart, 4-year cycles, all this stuff, are we really going to be that married to just charting stuff whenever you see this happening right now in terms of what's going on in macroeconomics? And when you actually break down the 4-year cycle over the last 12 years or so of Bitcoin's existence, you see that it actually lines up usually with the liquidity cycles like this, not so much the halving being the reason.
Exactly. And, just because it's done what it's done. And, we always say, well, there's no way to know the future. Obviously, the charts have rhymed, but they'll be the same until they aren't. Well, that could be now where they're not. And yeah, I mean, it's as simple as that. It's a matter of the economy that has played within that cycle. The same with again, every time we get a new president, they spend a lot of money at the beginning of that. And that starts in the early January when they take office. It didn't. They pushed back this time, and they had a lot of people that were going against Trump because they didn't like the fact that he won. So you can't control that. And that does affect the overall markets, where they're talking so negatively about tariffs and just it's everything combined. And it has to play itself out. So, I say to that the 4-year cycle is definitely been extended. Obviously here we're in, December, and it's nowhere near where it should be, or even close. So
it's been the worst fourth quarter. It's a worse fourth quarter than the fourth quarter of 2022 and 2019, I believe.
Yeah,
which is insane.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, people just have to be patient, and it almost always goes against what everybody thinks, and when everybody starts thinking the same thing, it's almost never right. So, it started to become so predictable that now everybody's like, oh, I got a grasp on this. I know what's going to happen. And I'm just as guilty as everybody else for thinking that in December we would have been halfway on our run up by now, and it just hasn't played out that way. So, I think that's a lot of what it is too, is the predictiveness of the past. You can look back and say, well, this is what it's done. It's going to do it again. Well, until it doesn't, right? So, and that's where we're at now.
The other thing is with, what you kind of just alluded to, like looking at different accounts on Twitter and everything and wondering what the contrarian play is and what the mainstream are thinking. There's never been retail this entire whatever you want to
No,
call it, bull market cycle so far. So
no.
whatever contrarian, I mean, it's basically just people that have been in this industry and in this ecosystem and in this asset class basically for the last 4 years, talking to each other, battling it out. You know what I mean? So there is no obvious retail play to go against, which is, again, kind of why we're still in it. I mean, when our shit's never gone up, what are we selling into? You know? So in a way, it's actually easier for us. I mean, like, you can talk about, how down we are. And if you were just holding Bitcoin, I mean, you actually have decisions to make. We don't. I mean, we're not right now. I mean, it's just like, hey,
No.
I'm still stacking. Like, there's no, I'm not selling on this swing or on that swing or anything like that, So,
Yeah, I think this is one of the worst times to be trying to play as a trader,
yeah.
because of the so small liquidity that these markets have. And you saw what a $1 million pump can do to the price. Well, immediately people selling it off. And I think it's mostly traders at this point.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, one of these pumps, they're going to sell it off, and it's just going to jet right past them. When the conditions are right, they're going to get left behind, and then they're going to say, oh shit, and have to buy back in. So yeah, this is definitely not the time. Even experienced traders will end up getting caught with their pants down, and it's not going to be pretty. So my recommendation, yes, is to continue to stack. If it goes up, fine, let it go up. If it pulls back, then stack a little bit more. And every time that happens, I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised with the final outcome of it once we finally get to that position.
They're going to be caught with their pants down, turn around, and Jerome Powell is going to be standing right behind them waiting. So, yeah, we are good to go on that stuff. So, hey, if you guys are here and enjoying the stream so far, do us a favor, hit the like button. We do this every Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel as well to support PulseChain. Even if you don't watch our videos all the time, it helps support the ecosystem, and that's what we're all kind of here to do. So, speaking of PulseChain, let's get into some crazy price action that we have had here over the last few days. This is going to be a very interesting topic, I'm sure. I would love to hear people's thoughts in the chat, but just looking at the prices right now. So we've got Pulse actually has now rallied up to 4 zeros and about a 1987 right now. It's been right at that 2 number. We've got PulseX, which pumped insanely hard the other night as far as an intraday move, which we'll get to, but it's at 4 zeros, 168. We've got Inc at 84 cents right now. We have Hex at 3.6 cents. We've got eHex at 00114 and PDI, of course, at 001993. No price on ProveX token yet. Not sure when that's going to be out, but we'll probably talk about that whenever it does, of course. So really interesting stuff. So here's what we'll talk about. Sunday night. Was that Sunday night? It all runs together. Yes. PulseX mainly was bought up big time. It literally, I think within an hour at its height was over 80% up, was PulseX, which of course, does bring up the other coins in the ecosystem. So PulseChain in general was moving up with reckless abandon, basically. So long story short, spoiler alert, we did see most of that move, I will say. I mean, we're still up in another zone from where we had been, but we did see a lot of that move get sold off, which is somewhat predictable, especially with where we're still at. Just watch the first 25 minutes of this show. That's partially why. But just in the environment that we're still kind of in with the macro market right now. But PulseX pumped up hard. It appeared to be some wallets that might have been affiliated with some Tornado Cash moves a few weeks back. We don't know. I think you were just alluding to this move when you said like about $1 million or something being injected. I don't know if you were talking about Pulse when you said that stuff, but yeah, we saw PulseX move up, and we'll look at the chart and the price and everything. But another question I want to pose to you, Ewok, is how much, because we saw this ecosystem, like Pulse hit new, fresh all-time lows just last week when we were speaking. And it was in the midst of the first couple of days of the ProveX sacrifice after Richard Hart's video anyway, where a lot of people, the sacrifice window had already been open for a little over a week, but that video served as a catalyst for a lot of people to consider getting in because they got more information. obviously. And it was still at a good rate to get in. Obviously, as the days roll on, and we're going to get to the ProveX stuff, but as the days move on now, it's less advantageous to do so. You and I, for instance, are done with anything that we're going to sacrifice for that. But this increasingly, with this aggressive move on PulseX and on the whole ecosystem the other night, looks like the floor for the ecosystem. Someone is desiring for that to be set in the midst of this ProveX sacrifice. We saw a lot of people sell off the core coins to go ahead and sacrifice for ProveX. Again, the new Pulse all-time low just a little bit over a week ago. So, yeah, what do you make of this move? And do you think there is intent to say, like, well, you shouldn't have done that because now, it's snapping back up the prices to where they should be? So,
well, yeah, and there were warnings all along about selling your core tokens at the lows to get in, and there's always pain when there are warnings and people don't listen and do it anyway. This is the PulseX pulse ratio. And yeah, I mean, it pulled up to within, it was 0.95.
wow.
It almost hit parity there on, I guess that was Monday that happened on the 8th. So it started Sunday as it ticked over and kept going. Yes, it pulled back to about 0.8. But we've grown back up to 0.84 now again. So it keeps trying and it keeps getting pushed back down. So it looks to me like these, we had a major sell-off. We had another pump. We had a sell-off. This is another pump without quite as big of it. So each time the sell-offs are getting less and less. I think people are starting to understand, something's trying to happen here. Let's kind of let it play out. And, I think it's a very good sign is each time there's a wick, the sellback wick is a little bit lower. So, it's definitely a good sign.
Yeah. Sorry, just asking the chat if they think that the PulseChain all-time low price is in or not at this point. So, yeah, that happened Sunday night. Of course, an aggressive move. And what was really interesting, I think, to take the most out of this is not so much just that move or the degree in which it got sold off, but did you see, and I know you did some Ewok, the amount of people that started to go crazy whenever this move got made? I mean,
oh yeah,
keep in mind, I mean, this is Pulse. I mean, as we sit here now, 80% down from sacrifice rate. I don't even know what, 90 some percent down from all-time high. It's not like this thing got shot up to sacrifice rate or something. It's not like it did a 4 or 5x or something. It made a 50 to 80% move in an hour, which is pretty crazy. But it got a lot of people out of the woodwork that either haven't really been paying attention or have actively shit on incessantly the ecosystem, Richard Hart, unabashedly, publicly. And then they just doubled back, and all of a sudden they're celebrating the pump on PulseX, which is just so rich. But yeah,
well, I think what we're going to see is a lot of that. And these people, they have that history of talking badly about it, and then they'll come back and they'll claim, oh, I was just trying to get people to sell. I was just trying to get people to dump their bags at the lows so that it was easier to pump. I knew we were going to go up all along. And I think you're going to see a lot of that mentality moving forward of some of these people that have just, like you said, they incessantly talk shit about Richard, about the coin, about the product. They're not true believers. They're not, they haven't been there helping people through the hard times. They're actually contributing to a lot of the pain that people are feeling, because when you look and you see constant just negativity, and talking badly about the investments of which I never understand why people shit on their own bags. It just, to me, it doesn't make sense. I would much rather not say anything and deal with it and wait than to talk badly about the things that we've been buying into for how many months or how many years now. So yeah, I think that's what you're going to end up seeing. Oh, I was right all along. I just was trying to speed it up by getting people to sell.
Right.
And unfortunately, you know, ex-wives are still selling too. So
Yeah,
um,
they are.
it is what it is. And but again, the bullish part of this and the positive part is that the drop down wicks are getting smaller and smaller. So, I forget who, I think it was Johnny Chaos that had mentioned. Well, there he is. Speak of the devil.
Very wow,
Um,
right on time.
he
Crazy.
was mentioning the daily delta, and you know a lot of what is positive is only having to be green candle, right? You only have to be a dollar higher than all the sells, the
Right.
buys, and when you do things like that, it does create some positivity. It creates green charts. It doesn't have to be much, but a lot of green candles look a lot better than a lot of red ones. So, it is a more efficient way of doing it. But again, you do have to get some of those people out by creating a FOMO pump like that, and it expedites it a little bit quicker. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting, and it's a great sign. Like even though like some of the people that gave the ecosystem up for dead and started talking about other coins and having other coin founders on, and then which that's fine, but like actively, like you
sure.
said, actively shitting on stuff that you're holding. Now, being critical of stuff here and there, I understand, but when you're
Mhm.
actually advertising against it, and I don't mean like the cosplay trolls, like we know who those are, that go away for 6 months and then all of a sudden come back and are writing threads, and they're like clearly just performative kind of actors, I guess. I'm not
Yeah,
that Johnny Chaos is very familiar with one of those people. But there are those. I don't really mean them because they're just kind of a whole other type, I guess. But the people that the people that were in it, they're not in it. They make it their effort to go against it and everything. Just the fact that they come back and are bull posting it on that move, which I wonder if they went back and deleted their tweets as soon as it got sold off, because they're just
it's
such
possible.
prisoners of every damn moment. But
Yeah,
the fact that we saw that kind of visceral reaction, what does that tell you? I mean, there are people here that are ready to go, even if they're, ex-wives are selling and bear posting it and saying PulseX is going to a new all-time low and whatever else. Yeah, I think it's a great sign that people came out in droves like that just on this little move.
yeah, yeah. It's definitely good. It's positive to see that many people still lurking. And there were some that had been quiet, right? As well. So it's not just the people that have been very vocal and very critical of things. I saw some comments from people that I hadn't seen in a while.
Yeah.
So, there is life that is there, and people are still watching from the background. And honestly, that's probably the best thing to do is if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything, right? And I saw a lot of people come back and say, hey, looks like we've woken up, something's going on here, let's become active again. And that is honestly more important because there's still voices. It just shows that people are still here, they're still watching. And just because they don't post every day, there's not a whole lot to talk about. I rarely post on X. I watch from afar. I keep a pulse of what's going on, but I rarely post anything. So yeah, it is very positive to see that there's still a lot of people around watching. So
Yep, I think so too. And a lot of those people, like you talked about, people going back and saying, "Oh, I was just trying to, get you to sell to buy more." Most of them just won't ever say anything. Like they'll criticize it all this time. It's the same as like, the people who like there was that Peter Zion guy that went on Joe Rogan 2 or 3 years ago and said that Bitcoin's like going to negative numbers and you're going to owe
oh
the
yeah,
chain, like right in the middle of the SPF stuff. And then, 2 years later, Bitcoin's $126,000 or something.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, and I'm sure he's not acknowledging those comments or anything like that anymore. So that's just what people do. So yeah, those are the non-believers. So
yeah.
um, it is nice to hopefully get a little bit of structure back here. There was that post from Richard Hart prior to the ProveX sacrifice announcement, where the key thing that got people's feathers ruffled was not accepting the PulseChain core tokens. And that's when we started to see this sell off and that sentiment change and stuff like that. And I was circling back to a main point there, and I don't remember what it was, but yeah, that's kind of when this whole thing started, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And now we're starting to float back up. So, yeah. Do you have anything else?
Well, yeah, we can talk about actually that and why that decision was made if you want with the crypto solve post.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking of transitioning to. So yeah, let's get into, we'll update kind of where we're at with the ProveX sacrifice in a minute. But first, yeah, let's look over this crypto solve post that broke that down a little bit. And I'm pretty sure this thing is epic. Do you want me to kind of read through?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
So this is from last week, roughly. So they said, still salty about not being able to sacrifice core Richard Hart tokens for ProveX. We're here to show you the math behind why the decision was made using Pulse and PulseX sacrifices as examples. So we'll use some numbers that could have been applicable to a number of early hexagons. To make the math easy, here are some assumptions. You purchased 20 million hex at an average price of 0.003 cents in the early days, which is roughly the current price of hex on PulseChain, and a perfectly reasonable average entry for most early adopters. Second, you never staked any, obviously unlikely, but we'll discuss later. You managed to sack for Pulse and PulseX when hex was at its highs during both phases, 18 cents for Pulse and 35 cents for PulseX. You sacked 10 million hex for each, so 1.8 million for Pulse and 3.5 million for PulseX. The rates won't be exact, but let's say both of those sacks got you a 2x multiplier. Pulse and PulseX sack rate prices are both 0001, ignoring multipliers. Once PulseChain launched, now your Pulse and PulseX bags were in effect representative of your hex bags. Let's dive into what prices you are effectively selling your hex at if you sold Pulse and PulseX after launch, and what the comparable hex price would have been if you instead held and didn't sack. So we'll use 3 price examples for both. You sold at the all-time high daily close. You sold at sack rate. You sold at 50% down from sack rate, effectively break even if you had a 2x multiplier. Charts below with 3 potential time points that match these figures marked for reference. You can also see lots had multiple opportunities to sell at each of these levels, though less for PulseX. Okay, so at all-time high prices, which were very short-lived. You sold Pulse for the equivalent of 92-cent hex. Combined hex price at the time was 3.5 cents. You're up 26x versus holding. You sold PulseX for the equivalent of 88-cent hex. Combined hex price at the time was 3.5 cents. You're up 25x versus holding. If the person in this example sold their entire bags at these prices, they walked away with 18 million, ignoring liquidity and slippage. They sacked 5.3 million total. Their 20 million hex bags at absolute all-time highs were worth 10 million. Let that sink in. So at sack rate prices, you sold Pulse for the equivalent of 36-cent hex. Combined hex price at the time was basically a penny. So you're up 35x versus holding. You sold PulseX for the equivalent of 70 cents. Combined hex price at the time was 3 cents. You're up 23x versus holding. At 50%, you sold Pulse for the equivalent of 18-cent hex. Combined hex price was at 1.34 cents. You're up 13x. You sold PulseX for the equivalent of 35-cent hex. Combined hex price at the time was 2.5 cents. You're up 14x. And a bonus one at today's prices, you're selling Pulse for the equivalent of 6-cent hex. Combined hex is now 0042. You're still up 14x versus holding. You're selling PulseX for the equivalent of 8-cent hex. Combined hex price is 0042. You're still up 19x versus holding. What does all of this mean? Well, there's more to discuss. So,
is that not crazy? Is that not crazy? Like, even at today's prices, if you were selling PulseX, you're still up 19x. It just blows me away how people see the price down, but when they sacrifice their hex for this or whatever, is how much they're still up. It's just crazy.
Yeah. So they go on to say, take out the bonus multipliers, essentially half the prices we posted, and you were still selling at relatively impressive prices. And some staking ROI on top of your original Hex purchases. If you in-staked before sacking, you're up even more ridiculous amount. Maybe you had much worse entry. You were still early-ish, but say your average Hex entry was 3 cents. You're still selling Pulse and PulseX at a 2x above that today, or break even without the multiplier. Even if you purchased Hex at absolute all-time high values, which a lot of us did, and sacked it for all PulseX, you actually had the opportunity to sell your bags just below your purchase price without a multiplier and 50% above your purchase price with a 2x multiplier. Sacrificing Hex, boy, how much longer is this thing? Sacrificing Hex for both Pulse and PulseX allows you to ignore the vast majority of downwards Hex price movement or performance since the sack phases ended. Lots of people, even without bonus multipliers, have been up anywhere from 10 to 30x versus just holding liquid Hex on both chains by sitting in Pulse and PulseX. Staking yield on Hex would have closed the gap a bit, but barely. There have been times where if you nailed some of your assumptions and entries and exits, you were in effect selling your Hex at nearly $1. Lots of moaning about the relative price performance of Pulse and PulseX, especially now. But if you actually look at the numbers, these charts have allowed a number of people to retain a huge amount of their bag value through a time in the market where most all-time lows have been down only, or most alts have been down only, but only if you sacked Hex. People who sacked stables, ETH, BTC, and et cetera, have comparably had a terrible time at the expense of early Hexicans. It's really interesting. Yeah. So showing that like sacking Hex is the way to go. Finally, this is why Richard Hart can't accept core tokens for ProveX. You end up losing people potentially or letting people do this all over again. And you're effectively guaranteeing charts that are forever down, which I think is dead on. If you let the person in the example sack their Pulse bags now, they're still sacking the equivalent of 6-cent Hex. And you then expect the ProveX chart to do a 10x. They'd be back above all-time high Hex values. Allowing core tokens into the sack would have been a death blow for the charts long term. The decision was made to protect the current charge, but also the future ProveX chart. Also, bonus nugget. This in effect means Hex is massively undervalued versus Pulse and PulseX as long as your reference point is sack prices. Very, very interesting, honestly. I'd be lying if I said I read through that whole thing the other day when you first sent it to me, but it does show that, you know, sacrificing Hex has actually done a lot of good for the ecosystem, you know, as is now. But to do that again, I mean, clearly, as we've talked about ad nauseum with the ProveX thing, it really seems like, especially with the Richard Hart video, that the thought behind that was we're getting a way, way lower valuation with this thing. We're going to get to it in a minute, but I mean, we have less than a month now, or about a month exactly left in the sacrifice phase. It's not really that advantageous to sacrifice already anymore, and we're only at a $16 million valuation for ProveX versus hundreds of millions for PulseX and Pulse. So, yeah, what are your main takeaways from this post, though?
Well, it just again, when I read it and do the math, it baffles me how much value there actually was. And I am glad that this was stated. I don't think enough people read it or, you know, whatever. They're just salty. So they sold instead of, you know, hanging on to their undervalued tokens right now that will most likely go up. They did a terrible thing and sold it at the very bottom. So, I was never really that aware of the values and, you know, people that actually sat down and did the math on it. Now I know why the prices dumped so much whenever this thing launched. You know, they were effectively getting crazy value out of their Hex, almost at $1 value, especially for some of those somewhat short stakers that got the big payday bonus too. You know, people don't talk about that, but there was you got a third bonus, a 33% bonus, just for being staked that day. So, you know, if you had 3 million staked, you got an extra 1 million tokens as a bonus. And, you know, those are for some of the longer ones. But it's just it's good that the math was done. It's good that it wasn't allowed. This would have just continued again and we would be in the same boat that we've been in for 2 years now with price down, because people were not only getting multipliers, but they were getting the value of what that technically what that hex was in the early days. So yeah, I'm glad we're getting a much lower evaluation on it, and hopefully it's a lot easier to pump. And there are so many people that are still salty about it and just didn't participate, not understanding that this sets it up to be much more bullish.
Yeah, I do agree with you. Do you want to go ahead, if it is working for you, you said, and pull up the ProveX site just to see where we're at now? So there we go. So let's take a look here.
Let me refresh it here.
Okay. So yeah, it just ticked over to a new day.
Yep, we are on day 30 right now. It just ticked over. So now the rate to get 10,000 points is $1.73. You might as well say. So instead of the dollar, the flat dollar that got you 10,000 points, now it costs you $1.73 to get to 10,000 points. And we are at 16.25 million total sacrificed. We've had some changes, which you brought to my attention in the top three. Anyway, somebody just put in $564,000.
And I think that must be a pool, because look how many tokens it looks like have been sent now, and it started off at just about 500K, and now it's gone up to 565 basically. So I think it's a small-ish, well, not small relatively, pool that's now in second place. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, there's 21 different sacrifices. So
Yeah.
and yeah, it did just come in. You said it just came in today, right?
I think so, this morning. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
And you can see as a result of that, the nice thing is for that top spot, which is still easily out in front, the number one wallet with 5.3 million, which is the Buck and Dylan pool. That obviously the new second place sacrificer helps the multiplier for that top spot. So if you were somebody that decided to participate in their pool, which, full disclosure, Ewok and I both did, and mainly did most of our sacking there at the beginning, the first week, essentially, in a modest amount. I mean, I think I can say for both of us, but that helped our multiplier a little bit by these other people coming in right now. So, I mean, it's kind of uncanny. I mean, like the numbers so far, and again, we still have a month away, but listening to a lot of spaces and talks with Buck and Dylan and Fast Abdul, I don't know if you're still on the chat, but I mean, you've been on a ton of those too, about ProveX. The valuation is really, really lining up to be exactly what a lot of people predicted. I think the high end of what I heard was maybe 50 million, and the low end was like 10. So, I mean, yeah, I don't think we're going to get to 50 million at this point. I mean, now I know there's a month to go, but that last week or whatever it is incredibly, you're at a huge disadvantage to be able to sack. But I don't know. Will the demand start to increase though? Well, I mean, will people we saw it. Richard Hart put out a video, and then a bunch of people started selling core tokens to get in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Imagine if there's another video that comes out. I mean, that's something that we could possibly see. We know that entity will probably end up owning a majority again, as with all sacrifices in the past and the way the things play out. The founder usually likes to own a big majority of the tokens, which again isn't a bad thing. It can help with market cap, and at the same time, those tokens may never sell. So, I could see us getting to, I don't know, 50, 60 million at the very end. I think at least 20 million will come in from that entity. I think it will be a little bit more than double. Well, I think it's going to be a little bit more than double of what already exists. I think that will kind of be the play, so that 2/3 are owned by that entity at least. Now, don't forget they're getting a flat 0.75 rate as well. So and the rate. So if we look at the rate at that point as well, you're essentially paying, in those last 5 days, you're paying $7.85 for 10,000 points, whereas back here we were paying $1. So it's
Right.
it's a crazy disadvantage, and the bonus is a 7.75 bonus too. So
Mhm.
you know yeah. So anyway, I think 2/3 of the tokens ownership would probably be sufficient, which would put us, if we're at 20 now, say we get to 20, I think another 40 comes in, we would be at 60
Yeah.
roughly.
Yeah, and another thing that we can say, for anybody that had been, I think the interest has died down because people are seeing where it's becoming less advantageous to sacrifice for this, and not a lot of people were
Yeah.
interested anyway. Let's face it. But that Buck did close down the pool as of, I believe, yesterday. So the Buck and Dylan famous fiat pool is now closed. Of course, there's still going to be stragglers for some weird reason sending tokens to the address, because that's just what happens with these things. I mean, we saw with the PulseX sacrifice, there were tokens showing up for months
Yeah.
into that address.
Yeah.
So I guess my final thought from you, that I want to know, Ewok, on ProveX is just kind of, where are you at still? We're a week after the reaction of the Richard Hart video. I mean, where are you at with what this product is and what it could mean for crypto as a whole and the chain as a whole? Because I know there's some people that, the majority, don't care about this at all. And, Richard Hart's a scammer, and, how is he trying to ask you for more money at this point? Yada, yada, yada. But there's, a select amount of people that I think are a little bit more measured, that are seeing that this could be a pretty huge product for crypto. Isn't totally just a cut and paste, copy and paste of
Yeah.
ZK P2P, maybe some elements and things like that. And with a low valuation, I mean, this could be pretty crazy and hopefully really help out not just crypto, but also PulseChain, of course.
Well, so let's go to the ProveX.com website and take a look and see
Mhm.
some of the things that, and I don't know if this is just for kind of tagging and saying, but I mean, there's legal services, insurance claims, real estate, e-commerce.
Yeah.
I mean, so it tells you a lot of the things that this can be used for. P2P escrow, identity verification. So, I mean, there's a lot of things. And this is kind of what I was saying in our intro there about the narrative of this cycle. And I really think it's privacy, right? So,
Mhm.
I don't know if you've heard, Hoskinson's been going on about this thing. I guess it's called Midnight or something like that. I
No.
haven't heard a whole lot about it, or actually much at all, but I did hear it's a privacy layer to Cardano.
Mm.
Um, you had the run up with Zcash. You're starting to see this could be, and once again, if that's the case, I don't know, Charles, how long he's had his product in development or whatever, but this could definitely be the narrative of this cycle. And as more and more people get into privacy and hear about the privacy, and again, he's usually a step or two ahead, and quite early. So it does take the markets a little while to catch up, but I think it's a good thing. And once you start to see countries losing rights. They can't post on social media. They can't repost on social media, or they're just as guilty as the original poster. Um, Privacy is becoming, you know, not so um, not so free anymore. So, these little things like that, and allowing people to have their privacy are so critical and important to moving forward if we want to keep the ideas and the, the original reason for crypto in the first place, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and I like that. I didn't realize that those different use cases and services were on there, so that is cool. At least the first part of this question here, as my screen freezes, from is it Peter? When will the people who sacrifice for ProveX receive their coins, and then also what the price prediction for PHEX? We can go a million directions there, but as
Wow.
far as the first thing though, I mean, Richard alluded kind of strongly in that video that a token could like, first off, just the idea that a token could definitely and easily come out before the product is actually launched.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people have like fear about that because when you think back, I mean, obviously the whole reason people aren't interested in doing this is because of the experience with the Pulse and PulseX sacrifice. And then you wait over 2 years for the blockchain to get launched and all that stuff. So that's what most people are assuming is going to happen. Whereas I think they're going to be wrong here, and I think there will be a token. I don't know about like a time frame after the sacrifice phase ends, which is January 9th of 2026. But I don't think it's going to be 2 years, and it sounds like a token may very well be out before the product is. So I don't know that it's going to be that long of a wait. But what do you think, Ewok?
Yeah, I agree. I think a week or two. You have to allow them time to figure it. So I know sacrifice totals took a while, even when Pulse and PulseX were being done and try to figure out. There's, you're including tokens from multi chains now, so there's a lot of work in the background that needs to be figured out. Hopefully they're staying on top of it this time. They got some practice the last time, and know how to better do it. You've got a lot of things. You've got the time weighted average of the sacrifice itself. What chain was it on? Where will the tokens all be given to? Right. So if they sacrificed from Solana, for example, will those tokens get issued out on Solana? There's going to be a lot of variables that we don't know. Will it be strictly on PulseChain? Will the product itself reside there, and they'll get an address on PulseChain? Because I know the addresses are different now. If you have if it's ETH or PulseChain, then it's easy to just assign them right on PulseChain. But as far as Solana or whatever other chain they came from, it could be different. It could be a lot more difficult to assign them. So I think that'll be the hurdle that they have to get over. But I'm guessing at most 2 or 3 weeks would be my guess. Maybe a month after it's over before you get it. And then when will the product itself be launched? Well, he said again, there's no really need to wait to give tokens. So we don't need a product, and it could get a market fit before it even launches. So it would be interesting.
Yeah. Any thoughts? This is a topic change, and we're, I guess, pretty much done with covering ProveX. But any thoughts on this question about Hex and where it could go?
Well, you're going to have to go back a couple months for that prediction. I mean, I've already said I think it can still hit $5.
In what century?
Well, I didn't say when. You didn't ask me when. Just what's the price prediction?
No, he didn't. That's what I'm saying.
That's why I said if the liquidity dries up, again, you're going to have some major runs on things. I think it could easily dry up. I think the liquidity could dry up pretty quickly. Now there are still a lot of tokens out there, but the inflation has gone down. So, I think even over $1.50, $2 is quite a reasonable target. That's PHEX. Now, EHEX, man, is looking good too. I don't know if you've seen that chart, but a lot of people are already sold out of that. So I think it could do some crazy things too. It's not hard for a token that most people already sold to go up. It's just a matter of getting the buys in there, and liquidity tied with Ethereum. Once Ethereum starts to run, that'll pull that up as well. So yeah, I see for the combination multi-dollar.
Well, keep in mind, I mean, if you would rather instead think about think about the fact that Hex on PulseChain here just made its like basically new all-time low like over a week ago or so. I mean, 100x from there is only like 30 cents.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just I guess for me, I would rather think about, I'm not really worried about price targets or anything like that, but if there is a party that's interested in how many X's something can do from an all-time low, what would that price be? So, yeah, I don't as much like price targets, but is more like, okay, what's the amount of money that I want to be able to not have to trade my time for money anymore, or whatever it is your goals are in terms of finances. So that's more what I'm into. But anyway,
and somebody asked earlier if we were still staking our Hex. I am. I can't speak for you, but yes, I still make 555s every month. I put a new one out there, so I'm still staking my Hex. I have a long-term belief in it. If I'm not here by then, my kids will get them. So again, long-term, I still believe. I still think it's one of the best creations out there. And I think it will catch on eventually. Maybe not, immediately, but I think it will.
Well, also, I mean, part of that is if you've staked Hex long term, then yes, you're still staking Hex because it's still staked. So, yeah, I am still definitely staking Hex as well. But more so concentrating on just, I've just been trying to aggressively DCA into all this stuff basically equally in the last couple of years, and looking for the best opportunities in crypto, which I still believe are in this ecosystem and with the stuff that Richard is creating. So, yeah.
Agreed.
If you guys are enjoying the stream, do us a favor and peg that like button. We appreciate you being here. We do this every Wednesday. There you go, Marco. Thank you very much. Every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Let's potentially wrap up with this and continuing with the privacy thing. Huge stuff from Liberty Swap over this past week, and they really do seem to be ramping up the activity in terms of swap limits, doing a lot of things with Ethereum. There's so many things I think going on under the hood that we are unaware of with Liberty Swap. And let's go back with Liberty Swap and just remember that this thing came out of nowhere. I don't even remember when it was at this point. I mean, I think it was maybe a year ago or under a year at this point. But remember, when discussing different ways to onboard in a PulseChain, it was just kind of one day out of nowhere with no big announcement or anything like that Richard just kind of referenced Liberty Swap. And then it's here. And, it's got a Twitter account. It's doing all these crazy things. And there's a lot going on. Well, over the course of this last week, they officially have implemented a Railgun, which is a privacy technology that is from Ethereum, basically. Rather than, I sent you Sami's because I couldn't find the picture he snapshotted of Liberty Swap there on Liberty Swap's actual account. So do you want to actually tap that first picture that he includes in his post, and I'll just read the Liberty Swap bullet points there? Yeah, that. Oh, geez, I can't read that at all. It's nowhere near zoomed in enough, unfortunately.
Do you want me to read it? I can.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, it says Railgun, PulseChain is a big deal. Why does it matter for Peacock? For the first time, users get instant routes in and out of Railgun. The process is usually very complex, but we make it simple. Fees are the lowest they have ever been. Even someone with $10 can use Railgun level privacy. This was not possible before. Railgun cannot run on non-EVM chains. With our routing, we can help Solana, Sui, CI, Tron, and other chains access Railgun privacy without technical barriers. Privacy for traders and marketers. People can buy and sell meme coins without watchers tracking their wallets. The demand for this is real. All fees from all chains below flow back into Peacock liquidity on PulseChain. This strengthens the base of the ecosystem. So,
okay. Well, I didn't know about the Peacock angle of it anyway, but just the fact that Railgun is live on Liberty Swap and another way to bring funds into PulseChain privately, where potentially, and again, like we just alluded to with Richard Hart, I don't even want to say announcing. I don't even think that's the right word, but whenever he just kind of stealth mentioned Liberty Swap whenever it initially first was, and we get all this activity from them in this account, and it grew faster than any PulseChain onboarding mechanism that we've really seen, to the point now where it's a lot of people's preferred way to get in. Now you do still have to get on an exchange first, really. If you're going to get in through this, it's not like Coast necessarily, which in a way is its own exchange. But you know, it to be able to do this privately now, could funds start to funnel into PulseChain using this technology rather than going through like Tornado Cash and stuff like that, to be able to do this through Liberty Swap. So this is huge. I mean, I think that they have a lot of stuff still working under the surface, and this is good. I can read that. So so here's how Railgun works. So you deposit your tokens into Railgun. Your tokens go into the Railgun smart contract. This gives you a private balance similar to a private ledger. You make transactions inside the private pool. So using zero knowledge proofs, the transaction shows I have enough funds and I'm sending this transaction correctly, but does not reveal who you are, how much you have, or who you are sending it to. You can withdraw it to any wallet. That's pretty awesome. And the blockchain cannot link your original deposit, your internal private actions, or your final withdrawal. So
pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool. So I think between this happening on here, it's no mistake that it's happening right now, while with the ProveX sacrifice going on at the same time. You've mentioned the other things in the crypto industry, with privacy right now. It's amazing to see all this come together. So here we go. Railgun versus Tornado Cash. Tornado Cash, simple mixer. Deposits, withdrawals are linkable to, does it say timing or by timing?
By timing.
Fixed denominations, and Tornado Cash, of course, got sanctioned. True. Railgun, private internal ledger, supports any amount. You can do swaps and trading inside. Very difficult to track. Not a mixer, not a private DeFi layer, not shut down. Used heavily across EVM chains. Railgun is more like a private bank account on chain. Tornado was just a bucket where everyone throws coins in, then pulls coins out. I mean, that seems like a pretty good explanation, I guess I'd say. And they do make a good point. Although Tornado Cash is usable now, it did get sanctioned, and we saw I always forget it. Raven Storm. What's his name? I always forget his name. It's a really cool name. The guy that created Tornado Cash. I never remember his name, but
I always forget it too.
Yeah, somebody.
The chat will remind us.
Yeah, but pretty awesome. I mean, my question for you, like outside of just the Railgun stuff, what do you make of Liberty Swap this whole time? Because it's just. It's so interesting how they've implemented all these things so quickly. It doesn't seem like it's just some, an interested party just by themselves did all this. It seems like there's a lot of people working on this behind the scenes. They've dipped their toes in and out of PDI stuff. I mean, for a while there, it was like posting anti-PDI stuff all the time and then talking about pegging and all this stuff. I don't know. But just the amount of things that they've implemented in such a quick amount of time, I mean, it looks awesome. And the amount of marketing really that they're doing too. Like they're doing fantastic marketing. Like I don't know who's behind the Twitter account, but there's a lot of reply guy stuff going on with them, a la what Richard Hart's been doing lately. They're posting the Liberty Girl memes with larger breasts every single time, I've noticed recently. They're really hammering it. So what do you make of what these guys have done since launch and just where we could be going with them?
Well, they've definitely marketed it well. At first it was Roman Storm. I like what they've done. They've made it relevant. They've made it easier to bridge in and out. Now, I've always said there was always some, risk to being quicker than the standard PulseChain bridge. what they were doing was just facilitating the move for you. They had liquidity on both sides. You would send it in, they would boom, send it right back out. You weren't waiting, but you were relying on them to make that move, right? So now that Railgun is implemented, I have mixed feelings. I mean, I like the privacy side of it, but does that make it easier for them to be not as upstanding, right? I mean, now that things are hidden, they're not easy to trace. So if there was any funny business happening, you would never know. Again, I like what they've done. They've been marketing well. They kind of appeared overnight, like you said, and their marketing has been on point, right? They've been drawing more users. They've been using the funds. Obviously, they've hired some developers to get all this stuff implemented. It's not easy to put something like this together as quickly as they have with the success that they have. So, again, nothing bad. I don't want to speak badly, and I love what they've done. There are just some risks with it. As with any bridge, you're going to have a risk. So, yeah, I think it's great. I think it's a great product, and people that want privacy now have this. And again, to the narrative, it seems to be popping up more and more. Everyone's talking about privacy this or privacy that, or the old tokens have kind of resurrected themselves. So, yeah, it can't be a bad thing. So. Yeah.
I'm happy to see it. I mean, I see them all over Twitter all the time, and mixing it up with people and stuff like that. I think it's a great onboarding mechanism into PulseChain. I mean, between we've got Liberty Swap, we have Coast, obviously, which I know you and I are still using. Probably the top couple ways to get into PulseChain easily. I mean, yeah, you can use the classic PulseChain bridge and things like that as well if you want to. There's multiple bridges to use. Like you said, I mean, that does pose security risks and things like that sometimes, but there's, whatever floats your boat, you basically got, if you want to go the bridge route, which would, Liberty Swap in a way uses the bridge. I mean, you have to start by going on a centralized exchange. So either way, you're pretty much going to have to get on Coinbase, Kraken, whatever. At that point, it's, how safe do you feel your funds are being on the exchange, which maybe that's not that big of a deal to you, but also they're going to hold them. Like, that's what's been happening with me now for a while, is Coinbase, like, pretty much no matter what I'm trying to send over there, are going to hold them for the better part of a week, basically.
Yeah.
Whereas Coast, if you've got an Old Glory bank account, I mean, you and I have kind of been proponents of that being our number one way to get into the ecosystem for a long time now. And, Old Glory has been awesome. I know we both agree with that. And, you just use the Old Glory Pay app to make a deposit right onto Coast, and then you can straight away buy PulseChain right there. Now, I know because of regulatory stuff, the Coast stable coin, the CST token, they're not offering right now as a way to get into the ecosystem, but you can still straight away buy if that floats your boat, whatever way you would rather do all these things. It's just what's more important to you, like timing, getting in quickly, and who you want your money in the hands of before it's holding crypto,
Yeah, and I'd rather not have to wait 5 business days. And, I haven't used Coinbase in forever. If I had money, I sent it to my Old Glory account, put it right in PulseChain. I haven't invested on any other. Actually, that's not true. I think there's a crypto.com. I still buy occasionally 50 or $100 of Ethereum just to have it for gas, because the prices have been so good lately. And I because I still stake and unstake Hex, I want to have some Ethereum before it gets to be unaffordable, right? And it's not much, but again, DCAing here and there, like I said, 50 or $100 every now and then, maybe every couple of weeks, I'll get a little bit just to have it, because I do know that eventually it will go up, and we'll wish that we had bought it at $2,000 instead of 15 to 18,000. So but other than that, yes, PulseChain entry for me, I love the Old Glory. I love the setup. I love the customer support that Stoic and those guys give. There have been some technical glitches. They haven't been perfect, but when there has been an issue, they've been on top of it, and they've gotten the transaction to clear rather quickly. So, again, nothing's perfect, but I would rather have that relationship and be right on to PulseChain again rather than waiting 5 days through Coinbase. So.
Yeah, I'm with you. You got your bank. I mean, you're sending it right from a bank to their platform. So you've got the bank transaction, and you're right. I mean, Stoic, to his credit, I mean, you can, if you're on the Coast platform, not to turn this whole thing into a Coast segment, but you can message him directly on there, and he gets back to you a lot of times, at least within an hour, and figures out what's going on, and it's very helpful. So yeah, I am with you. No way is perfect. That's for sure. There's no easy, cheap, entirely free way to get directly into crypto now. There are some moves you got to make, but they are getting better and better as time goes on. So anyway, awesome stuff from Liberty Swap. Continued huge updates, huge marketing. I mean, Richard keeps talking about marketing. I mean, I feel like they're doing a lot just by what they do and what they offer, so really good stuff. So that's pretty much the only things I wanted to cover here tonight, Ewok, unless you had any final things to say.
No, man, there's not a whole lot going on right now. It's just we're playing that waiting game, and we're kind of watching how ProveX plays out. We're watching how the markets change. We're watching the macro overall. Other than that, it's a waiting game, and we just put our time in and watch and continue to buy as long as these levels are where they're at. I don't see, well, who knows? We could eventually come back down to these rates, but man, if it takes off like we think it's going to, it could maybe never come back down this low again. And I still think there's some major opportunities here.
Yeah, especially with the fact, the whole conversation that we had at the beginning of the show about, the cycle, who knows what it's going to look like this time. The fact that Ethereum right now, after this huge down move by Bitcoin, Ethereum's actually printing a bull flag against Bitcoin. Hey, whatever. Let's say Bitcoin does go into a stereotypical bear market. Let's say it goes down to 55, 35K or something next year. Is Ethereum and the altcoins going to get absolutely, utterly obliterated when they haven't at all on this move down so far? Like, it's kind of like what goes down must come up, and vice versa. I mean, we haven't seen Ethereum never even made a new all-time high really this cycle. So how is it going to go to $600 again? You know what I mean? Hey, famous last words. Go ahead and clip this in a year whenever it's $650 or something like that. And Tom Lee's begging for money on the street or whatever. But I don't know. I think there's a lot of people out there, these mainstream Bitcoin bros, that are just not paying attention to that fact. And it's probably because they don't care about that fact. And
right.
That's okay, I guess.
Because they don't own any. They don't own it, man. People don't talk about what they don't own.
You're right about that. Yeah, well, we do talk about Bitcoin, but just because it influences the rest of the market. But anyway, this has been an awesome stream. Merry almost Christmas to all of you. A shout out to everybody in the chat. It's been a really active chat tonight, so I appreciate all you guys. A lot of stuff going on, considering the fact that Pulse had an all-time low price just last week, but there's a lot going on. Obviously, the market's super volatile. And a lot of good news, just the charts not reflecting it yet. So appreciate you guys. Conspiracy Crypto, Valiant Low Key, DJ Hexakin, and Mr. Millie, Marco, DJ Moonboy checked in for 1 second earlier. I saw Johnny Chaos was in the chat a lot tonight. Wall to Wall TV, Hex a lot. Peter Pan, Flex. Okay, hi to you. Eddie G. I could keep going forever. Wesley Whips. NJ Dub checked in. Appreciate all you guys. We do this every Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be here next week, and then once we get to Christmas and the New Year's, we'll kind of see how our schedule lines up, but we'll definitely be here next week. So appreciate all you guys being here for Crypto Ewok. This has been Bowels of Holly Boy Crypto right here on the Creed of Crypto. See you guys.
See y'all.